Helen said that it was a failure of therapy. It's possible that their therapist, their main advice was stay away from your brother.
From Cain and Abel to the Mitchell brothers via Bobby and JR in Dallas and the Miliband's, fraternal relationships often cause trouble. Let's speak to both our panellists about this. Giles Coren, morning to you.
Hi.
And Helen Rumbelow, morning.
Good morning.
Helen, what do you make then of what is going on here? And I wonder whether, when it comes to William and Harry, does your viewpoint just have to reflect perhaps what one has thought, what side basically one comes down on when it comes to Harry versus William? You could say, well, Harry's being very rude, isn't he? Can't believe he's not going to see William. You know, his wife's been in hospital. And then the other side, of course, is that, well, William doesn't want to see Harry, and Harry obviously has a beef with both Prince William and his wife. So this is kind of fair enough. How do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, I think what it is overall is an example of a complete failure of therapy. They are both the worst adverts for therapy I've ever known. Initially, obviously through their 20s, they had lots of therapy, both of them were these big advocates for it and mental health and everything. And they've either had far too little or far too much, because this is exactly the kind of pressure point that therapy is meant to help with. And, they are in a disastrous situation where it feels like they're handling it, almost as badly as anyone could. I think it's really interesting as well in terms of them being royal, because I feel like royals are obsessed with duty. There's this constant preoccupation with how much they give up of themselves to the service of someone else. And in actual fact, this is such a relatable idea. I think we think of it as a royal idea, but it's such a relatable idea. There's so many families where there'll be a rift and then someone will get ill and you'll be faced with this idea of duty. Like, what is everyone, I feel like so many people have had this dilemma. What am I expected to do now? How far am I expected to compromise? And they've really been quite a bad example, I would say, both of them, as far as we know, in terms of being able to make that sort of dutiful decision.
Giles Coren, I know you don't have a brother, you have a sister, but do you think that you would be able, if you were Prince Harry, would you be able to forgive and forget, move on?
Well, the thing is, it's a question of what he said they're supposed to forgive each other for. I don't know. Helen said that it was a failure of therapy. It's possible that their therapist, their main advice was stay away from your brother. One of the things that a therapist does, or at least the kind of therapy that I've had, is to sort of replace dysfunctional parts of a relationship.
Yeah.
And that happens quite often. There's sometimes analysis will say, reject your mother, reject your father. It's been poisonous, it's been toxic, and now you should step away from them. So possibly, and I hate speculating on their life. I feel terribly sorry for them that it's all under this scrutiny, and they're not a scripted drama, and the outcomes are never going to be something that we can, that are going to be fully expected. But I think maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe they should stay away from each other. And also, it's a relationship, a fraternal relationship, is a sibling relationship, is a long game. I have long periods with my sister where we don't talk to each other, when we're sort of getting on each other's nerves. And the best thing might be 6 months, not necessarily nattering about, we have a row and we don't make it up for 3 or 4 months. Oddly, normally, a sick parent does normally bring you together. So if I trace after childhood, my closest to my sister, we're having not really bothered with each other much. When my father was diagnosed with cancer in 2007, we became very, very close immediately. We sort of rekindled everything that had happened when we were sort of 10 and lived together, and got together to support our mum and our dad and each other, so that we didn't burden our partners with all the weight and the emotion of a dying parent. because a partner's job isn't that. And but the whole of the rest of your life, you then when it's all over and done, you go back to your partner, who's the person you've chosen to do it with. So, and as I mentioned last week, my mum's not well now; she's on the mend. But I now see more of my sister. I'm sure my mother is better. We will both be delighted not to have to meet 6 times a week in hospital. They're just going through a bit of a cold patch. I think that's okay.
Do you feel sorry for that? That's a really good, interesting point for me. Because people get in touch with us on this program, Helen, and say, leave them alone, that you shouldn't be even talking about their lives. Which I struggle with in the sense of I can accept leaving them alone, but they don't want us to leave them alone because their entire existence is predicated on the fact that at some level they rule over us. And if they wanted to be left alone, they could be private citizens. And of course, they don't want to be private citizens. They want the full panoply of the state and the magnificence of the institution. And therefore, you can't have it both ways. You can't be a private royal. It's a contradiction in terms. But Giles makes the case, that brothers falling out with a sick dad is something that inherently you should always feel sorry about. What do you think, Helen?
I feel terribly sorry for the royals. I know that there's this dilemma now. They're a bit like sort of, capturing a lion cub or something. You can't really release it back into the wild. We've kind of trapped them, imprisoned them, caged them. And sure, yes, they've got used to this life and maybe they couldn't fend for themselves in the normal world. But it's entirely our creation. And I when these incidents happen where everyone is now speculating about their father and his health, I feel like I feel terribly sorry for them, and I feel like it's got to stop.
How do you stop it though, Helen? Because you work in the media, and the main people who are doing this are the media.
Your fault.
When I look I can guarantee you this, Helen, when I look at, as I do every Friday, at the 10 most clicked or the 20 most clicked on stories in the Times, I guarantee in the top 10 there'll be 4 royal stories, because there is every single week. And you're part of the problem. I'm part of the problem. We're all part of the problem. So we can't say leave them alone, because basically we're in a business that doesn't leave them alone.
I know. And one of the worst experiences of my professional life was sitting in a room with Prince Harry when he was on stage, and he had his eyes downcast. Every time he raised his eyelids to look at the press, the camera flashes would go off and blind him. And the look of kind of pure torturous sort of hatred he had at that moment, just simply lifting an eyelid would kind of cause him this kind of physical pain. It was such a sort of horribly complicit time for me to sit there and look at that. Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. We're completely obsessed, but we're completely obsessed, I think, with the drama, because we love a drama. And I think that, we could easily find another drama. That's what the Americans do, isn't it?
Yeah, but people, I think Times Radio listeners are quite pro what they do. Really unfair for Stiggs and someone here to keep saying the royals have chosen their life. They have not. Are they expected to implode the monarchy to become so-called private citizens? Well, to a certain extent, Harry has chosen to do that. And that's a decision that a person can make.